All right, welcome back. We're here with our Primetime Power Panel discussing whether or not Filner can actually change his ways and still lead the city like an honorable mayor should. All right, let's take up where we left off, which is you asked me what I would tell women who are getting sexually harassed. And here's the problem. There's so many different scenarios. Yeah. It happened to me when I was a very young single mom and I needed to put food on the table. Right. And I had a boss blocking me. Well, what am I going to do? I have food on the table. So I learned how to survive that game, to skirt around it, to get out of the situation. And why did I have to learn those survival skills? Because some man harassed me, bullied me. You know, felt bullied. I felt like I was getting abused.
Right, and if you
but I couldn't quit. I couldn't tell him to go to hell and quit. I needed the job to put food on the table. Right. So many women are in that position. At this point,
and
you know, in that position, I would say learn survival skills to run circles around them, because that's what I did. Right. At this point, I'd tell them to go to hell. I would be like, are you kidding? Bam, I'm going to sue you. We're going down. You're going down.
And you're going to start to see the same thing happening with men who claim that they're sexually harassed by their female bosses.
That's good, though.
It's a human issue.
Right. And historically, to your point, Taylor, that when women or men would complain about sexual harassment, then that goes on their record, right? Or less likely to get hired, right? Or promoted. I mean, it becomes kind of a flag on a person's record, right?
It sure does.
I think that makes it more challenging.
So I think this is a great dialogue that we need to have about sexuality, boundaries, what's appropriate. What if a female employee comes and tells you a dirty joke? Do you say, I'm sorry, please don't do that? Is that sexual harassment? We should have discussions now about that.
So then you say, because there is a blurred line, because it goes so many different ways, there's so many variables, women need to feel empowered to say, hey, that kind of talk makes me feel uncomfortable. Please don't talk that way.
That should be more socially acceptable.
Exactly.
Right. You just need to stand up for yourself instead of squirming and be able to speak your mind. Because even I am very affectionate, happy person, right? So I would never want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. That wouldn't be my intent, but it might. So I would want them to tell me about me, you know, touching you like that.
Right.
So it's assertiveness training, especially for young women, and it's on the job training, so to speak. So they need to have a mentor or somebody that they can speak with, discuss an issue and say, hey, listen, this made me uncomfortable. Am I overreacting, or am I accurate in my perception of this? But it needs to be trained, I think, from early on in the home, in schools, and in graduate programs.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely. But let's bring this back to our mayor. Does he really need education about what's appropriate and not appropriate, that you shouldn't stick your tongue down women's throat by the age of 70?
Put him in a headlock.
Come on.
Well,
way over the top.
We need to diagnose the problem, Mark. As a doctor, you know that you want to diagnose a problem before you speak about what's wrong with him. 2 weeks, full diagnosis, medical, personality assessment, and we were just talking at the break. Sometimes what appears like sexual behavior is neediness. It's needy behavior. People have to realize that even if they don't realize they're coming across and transgressing people's boundaries, there's a neediness that can be violating of people.
Well, yeah, that's fine. Let him get his diagnosis, let him get his treatment on somebody else's time and somebody else's money, not the city of San Diego.
You know what, if we're going to talk about, we're combining treatment potential outcomes with what we should do, I mean, just everyone's, you know, get him out, but just a slightly different perspective just to look at is that if indeed he gets assessed, as Dr. Levack is suggesting, and if indeed he's motivated and capable of changing, determined by mental health professionals, he could be a great role model. It could open the discussion for how awful this kind of behavior and intolerable it is, and what people need to do to repair and change that behavior. It could be a great changing moment for our society.
So are you saying keep him in office and rehabilitate him? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's not my call. I think that people should let him get assessed and see if the treatment's helpful, see what happens afterward. The question was, can he change?
We would only know if women had the courage to come forward. It takes a lot of courage because you're putting the chances of ever getting hired again, job promotion.
But that's why this is an important dialogue. That's why
Well, when you look at a cancer patient, you say, okay, what's the prognosis for this
Yes.
patient? One of the things you look at is what's the history. So we don't know what his childhood history is. We don't know what his exposure is as a kid. We then don't know what his young adult behavior was. We then don't know, we do know that there's kind of this little crumb trail that he's left behind of all these different women along the way. That does not bode well for a very good prognosis, which is, I think, what you were speaking to. There needs to, I think he's going into the program to do something. And I think, that's why he's doing it. Will it help? There needs to be remorse, and then there needs to be remediation. We don't know.
And
That's
then,
still
and then a
untold.
treatment plan.
And follow-up treatment,
Exactly.
not just
Exactly.
And
While
then-
he's mayor, while
Well-
he's leading our city.
And fighting a lawsuit.
And fighting that taxpayer. Well, I
And
guess
trying to get the
Jan
taxpayers
Gold
to
says
pay for
something
it.
to
Yeah,
do.
but that's different.
The last shoe to fall today is now from what I understand, he's suggesting that because he didn't have sexual harassment training during the first 6 months of his employment as mayor, somehow he's not responsible for these transgressions.
Well, he's looking for a loophole. He wants to keep.
Well,
Well,
Yeah,
he's
right.
not taking personal
It's
responsibility.
a choice.
but-
It's a choice that they gave him, right? As a congressman, he has a choice. He chose not to.
But our discussion as mental health professionals is to try to give the public some idea, because there's lots of people out there who have similar issues.
Right.
There are loads of sexual problems out there. We want the public to know that if you have issues, interpersonal issues, you can get treatment, there is hope, you can change, and that we're not here to judge you. For Mayor Filner, you as a reporter say get him out the city, you have every right to do that.
I'm
Absolutely.
judging him as a mayor, as a man. Yes, go
Absolutely.
get rehabilitated and then move on with your life and find another career. Great.
But I also think
all
that speaks to do it earlier. If you're seeing any kinds of indications that you have problems yourself or a loved one or
Yes.
somebody you work with, this is prophylactically do something rather than waiting for, and
disaster.
these are
To
8
hit
women that we
ground,
know
yeah.
of, lives that have been affected as well.
That's right.
I'm more in the same place as Taylor. I have 4 daughters, and my concern for the public welfare and the public health, mental health, it lies with the victims, the daughters, rather than with the perpetrators.
Yeah,
And-
but as a psychiatrist, you have to think of your patient, the public. Yes, I've had a daughter. I would be outraged if someone harassed her. But we are, in terms of helping the public understand, is there a mental health component? Absolutely, possibly.
Well, there's a behavioral
Absolutely.
component.
I was telling our Primetime Power panel during break that I feel, my opinion is such that if we keep him in office, even if after he gets rehabilitated, if it works, which we wouldn't know unless people didn't come out and complain, we just really don't know. I think that it's victimizing, again, the victims and all women that have been sexually harassed in the past, but especially his victims.
and go on, Mark.
At some level, we're medicalizing and psychiatricizing this bad behavior, and in some sense, it victimizes the victims again by kind of excusing the behavior because it's a psychiatric illness. It's not just bad behavior or boorish behavior. You have a mental illness.
So,
I don't
Mark,
think that's
do you
right.
remember Patty Hearst? Did we make excuses and for her? Didn't we realize she had the Stockholm syndrome? Aren't there
Well, didn't she go to
examples-
prison?
She did.
But she's
She
not
did.
a mayor. She wasn't like leading a city.
I'm not talking about what should happen to the mayor
Right.
politically. That's a separate
Right,
issue.
right. Me
I'm
neither.
talking about, do we have the right to sit here and say it's just bad behavior,
Right.
rather than saying that what is the underlying cause? How do we diagnose it? How do we treat it? What are the possible underlying causes? And then what is the treatment option? Because our public deserves to know that there are signs of mental illness that are bad behavior. Kids, teenagers, for example, steal, whereas they're not really criminals, they're often depressed. Or, go on.
But I think the point that you're making is we need to compartmentalize this out.
Yes.
We all
Yes.
agree this is bad behavior.
We all agree.
I think we all agree that there needs to be some kind of an assessment done of this individual. And we all agree the political aspects of it are separate from
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank
can't
you for
believe-
saying that.
Yeah, thank you. That well said.
Well, how can we keep going if we agree?
No, but it's so important that, well, no, and I do agree. I don't think that a healthy man would behave in the manner, because it isn't just sexual abuse, it's our harassment. I call it abuse, I don't care. There are other, bad behavior situations, where there were no boundaries in it, no healthy boundaries in his life that I saw anyhow.
But I get confused. I understand how hard it is for women to come forward. I get that. But a lot of people have said that he's a jerk to men and women, both, and yet they voted for him. So it confuses me.
Yeah, that drives me crazy. I don't know. And where are the labor unions that helped him get in office now? Where are they hiding?
A lot of things have changed over the past 20 years. What was acceptable 20 years ago, I mean, I'm not allowed to call my assistant a secretary. That's over the last 10 years. We used to call her a secretary.
Wait. His behavior was wrong 20 years ago.
How do you know
it's
that
still wrong?
It was 20 years ago?
He said it's been going on for years.
Yeah, he said what was acceptable. What did he say?
No, he said, think times have changed. What was acceptable back then isn't acceptable now. It was never acceptable.
Was it ever
it's a
acceptable?
Rationalization of his behavior.
Was it ever acceptable for a psychiatrist to marry his patient or her patient? It used to be allowed. No longer is it allowed, right?
Well.
Things change. Mores, values change. People
sticking your tongue down some strange woman's mouth has never been okay. It will never be okay.
No one says it's okay. We're trying to understand a human being so that we don't, as professionals, rush to judge him and diagnose him before we've had a full evaluation.
If he wants to go get diagnosed, let him go do it. But in the meantime, he's behaving badly.
Absolutely.
And he's behaving boorishly.
Have we heard accountability on his part? I mean, has he said, I'm really sorry, this was terrible behavior?
Oh, yeah. He's paid lip service to that. And then in the same breath, he says, well, you didn't give me adequate training.
But I wasn't
and he's
trained.
blame shifting, and he's,
Okay, so there's a little bit of this going on.
Yes.
And he said I was inappropriate, I behaved disrespectfully, I need to change that. So
if he was truly remorseful, he would just step down and say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There
you go. That's what I would do. I'd feel so ashamed.
Me too.
I would want to be.
Right.
But in terms of diagnosing him and talking about can he change, that's separate.
Well, I hope he goes to see you, buddy. maybe you could actually make that
he
change.
could probably help
All
him.
right, I want to thank you all for coming, stopping by Primetime, and being a part of our Primetime Power panel.
Did you touch me? Was that a good touch?
Did I filner you? I'm so sorry. You have to watch that.